Kia ora, g'day, welcome back once again here, this time with a reaction to the Defence Secretary, Mr. Peter Hegseth, who it says here declares war on DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion, and explosive speech. And it's got fat troops, beards and quotas are over. So I'm interested to hear what he has to say, so let's jump back in.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the Joint Chiefs, generals, admirals, commanders, officers, senior enlisted, NCOs, enlisted, and every member of our American military, good morning. Good morning and welcome to the War Department, because the era of the Department of Defense is over. You see, the motto of my first platoon was those who long for peace must prepare for war. This is, of course, not a new idea. This crowd knows that. The origin dates to the 4th century Rome and has been repeated ever since, including by our first commander-in-chief, George Washington, the first leader of the War Department. It captures a simple yet profound truth. To ensure peace, we must prepare for war. From this moment forward, the only mission of the newly restored Department of War is this: warfighting, preparing for war and preparing to win, unrelenting and uncompromising in that pursuit. Not because we want war, no one here wants war, but it's because we love peace. We love peace for our fellow citizens. They deserve peace, and they rightfully expect us to deliver it. Our number one job, of course, is to be strong so that we can prevent war in the first place. The president talks about it all the time. It's called peace through strength. And as history teaches us, the only people who actually deserve peace are those who are willing to wage war to defend it. That's why pacifism is so naive and dangerous. It ignores human nature and it ignores human history. Either you protect your people and your sovereignty, or you will be subservient to something or someone. It's a truth as old as time. And since waging war is so costly in blood and treasure, we owe our republic a military that will win any war we choose, or any war that is thrust upon us. Should our enemies choose foolishly to challenge us, they will be crushed by the violence, precision, and ferocity of the War Department. In other words, to our enemies, F-A-F-O. If ne-
I heard a woohoo in there, F-A-F-O. Pretty sure that means F around and find out. So, man, there's a lot in there so far. I could have pushed pause, but I just wanted to let it flow as well as it can. It's about 45 minutes long, but there's, a few things in there that I resonate with anyway, in terms of if you want peace, you have to prepare for war. And I think anybody that loves where they're from, the people and the places where they're from, would be aligned with that. Pacifism, yeah, I don't align with that either. I think that's a good comment of what he shared. But man, I'm interested to hear where the rest of this is going. There's only one mission set for the Department of War, and that's warfighting, preparing for war, and being able to win any war that they choose to enter or that may be thrust upon them. Big words, man. Big, bold claims, but I think that's true with regards to the US and them being a superpower. But I also think, there's some other fairly well-equipped, well-trained and people, other superpowers, for want of a better term, that seem to be equally committed to whatever it is that they believe and the differences that they seem to have with the US and probably many other countries. So interesting times ahead, man. Anyway.
Necessary, our troops can translate that for you. Another way to put it is peace through strength, brought to you by the warrior ethos. And we are restoring both. As President Trump has said, and he's right, we have the strongest, most powerful, most lethal, and most prepared military on the planet. That is true, full stop. Nobody can touch us. It's not even close. This is...
Jeez. I mean, I think there are, like, I agree, most well-equipped, resourced, etc. Superpower for a reason, as I mentioned earlier. But I just hope, it would be, I think anyway, I think it would be naive to think that nobody could touch them. They may not win, but I think anybody can be touched. I think even the US, Afghanistan is an example of that, unfortunately, and not only the US, all other coalition forces that were part of that as well. But I mean, there are some heavy hitters out there too, aside from the US. And so, just as long as, I guess my thought, where my mind goes, listening to these comments, just as long as, and I don't think they are, but just as long as they're not naive enough to think that nothing could touch them at all, because I'm pretty sure, there are some other superpowers out there that likely could touch, disrupt, infiltrate, do some pretty nasty things if they wanted to. And maybe they already are. Who knows?
It's true largely because of the historic investments that he made in his first term, and we will continue in this term. But it's also true because of the leaders in this room and the incredible troops that you all lead. But the world, and as the chairman mentioned, our enemies get a vote. You feel it, I feel it. This is a moment of urgency, mounting urgency. Enemies gather, threats grow. There is no time for games. We must be prepared. If we're going to prevent and avoid war, we must prepare now. We are the strength part of peace through strength. And either we're ready to win or we are not. You see, this urgent moment, of course, requires more troops, more munitions, more drones, more Patriots, more submarines, more B-21 bombers. It requires more innovation, more AI in everything and ahead of the curve. More cyber effects, more counter-UAS, more space, more speed. America is the strongest, but we need to get stronger and quickly. The time is now, and the cause is urgent. The moment requires restoring and refocusing our defense industrial base, our shipbuilding industry, and onshoring all critical components. It requires, as President Trump has done, getting our allies and partners to step up and share the burden. America cannot do everything. The free world requires allies with real hard power, real military leadership, and real military capabilities. The War Department is tackling and prioritizing all of these things. And I'll be giving a speech next month that'll showcase the speed, innovation, and generational acquisition reforms we are undertaking urgently. Likewise, the nature of the threats we face in our hemisphere and in deterring China is another speech for another day, coming soon. This speech today, as I drink my coffee, this speech today is about people, and it's about culture. The topic today is about the nature of ourselves. Because no plan, no program, no reform, no formation will ultimately succeed unless we have the right people and the right culture at the War Department. If I've learned one core lesson in my 8 months in this job, it's that personnel is policy. Personnel is policy.
Yeah, and I've heard, and I agree with it as well. Personnel, people are the lifeblood of any organization. I don't care if you're military, I don't care if you're corporate, whatever. people are the lifeblood. Now, I get it. Yep, a whole bunch of AI and technology advancements, etc., etc. At this stage, it's still blah, blah, blah. There are plenty of things that you can do with AI, but people are still the driving force. And same with any military. You still need people. Unless you can create a whole defense military out of Iron Mans or some sort of cyborg robots, even then you're still going to need people in the background to do the programming and stuff. Who knows where things will be in another 20, 30, 40 years' time. But I agree with the comment that the Defence Secretary is saying here, just my 2 cents in and around what I've heard and been taught and what I'm still aligned with today. People are your lifeblood of any organization.
The best way to take care of troops is to give them good leaders committed to the warfighting culture of the department. Not perfect leaders, good leaders. Competent, qualified, professional, agile, aggressive, innovative, risk-taking, apolitical, faithful to their oath and to the Constitution. Eugene Sledge, in his World War II memoir, wrote, quote, "War is brutish, inglorious, and a terrible waste. Combat leaves an indelible mark on those who are forced to endure it. The only redeeming factors are my comrades' incredible bravery and their devotion to each other." In combat, there are thousands of variables, as I learned in Iraq and Afghanistan, and as so many of you did in so many more places. Leaders can only control about 3 of them. You control how well you're trained, mostly how well you're equipped, and the last variable is how well you lead. After that, you're on your own. Our warfighters are entitled to be led by the best and most capable leaders. That is who we need you all to be. Even then, in combat, even if you do everything right, you may still lose people because the enemy always gets a vote. We have a sacred duty to ensure that our warriors are led by the most capable and qualified combat leaders. This is one thing you and I can control, and we owe it to the force to deliver it. For too long, we have simply not done that. The military has been forced by foolish and reckless politicians to focus on the wrong things. In many ways, this speech is about fixing decades of decay.
I wonder if he's talking about, while it's got their quotas are over, trying to get, certain types of people in for that diversity, equity, and inclusion piece to fill those voids. He's right, man. Like, if you're having a Department of War, combat roles, we need to have women in there, we need to give them equal opportunity. I don't know if that's what he's going to be talking about, but yeah, I know I raised an eyebrow when I heard that the New Zealand Defence Force, as an example, had opened the doors and had done some modifications for females to be able to join the infantry. I was like, oh man. But I'm not saying that that's what he's going to be talking about. I'm curious if that's part of what this conversation is. I assume so, based on the DEI and declaring war on that aspect of it. So let's hear what he has to say anyway.
Some of it obvious, some of it hidden. Or as the chairman has put it, we are clearing out the debris, removing the distractions, clearing the way for leaders to be leaders. You might say we're ending the war on warriors. I heard someone wrote a book about that. For too long, we've promoted too many uniformed leaders for the wrong reasons, based on their race, based on gender quotas, based on historic so-called firsts. We've pretended that combat arms and non-combat arms are the same thing. We've weeded out so-called toxic leaders under the guise of double-blind psychology assessments, promoting risk-averse, go-along-to-get-along conformists instead. You name it, the department did it. Foolish and reckless political leaders set the wrong compass heading, and we lost our way. We became the woke department, but not anymore. Right now, I'm looking out at a sea of Americans who made a choice when they were.
Some of those sea of Americans that he may be looking at may be some of those that got promoted for those reasons that he just spoke about. I don't know. But, man, the woke department, there's a listening to him speak about that, what I like is that he seems to be, pointing the finger at maybe other administrations that allowed these things, or politicians, without directly naming them, for their part in this, what's happened, but also acknowledging that that's where they're at and that things need to change. And I think that's a good thing.
Young men and young women, to do something most Americans will not, to serve something greater than yourselves, to fight for God and country, for freedom and the Constitution. You made a choice to serve when others did not, and I commend you. You are truly the best of America. But this does not mean, and this goes for all of us, that our path to this auditorium on this day was a straight line, or that the conditions of the formations we lead are where we want them to be. You love your country, and we love this uniform, which is why we must do better. We just have to be honest. We have to say with our mouths what we see with our eyes, to just tell it like it is in plain English, to point out the obvious things right in front of us. That's what leaders must do. We cannot
say with our mouths what we see with our eyes. I love it. That's good, man. I'm interested to hear what else has been said. I think I might even just let this crack on for the whole time.
Not go another day without directly addressing the plank in our own eye, without addressing the problems in our own commands and in our own formations. This administration has done a great deal from day one to remove the social justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological garbage that had infected our department, to rip out the politics. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that shit.
I like it. That's awesome. Done with that. No more debris. We are done with that. SHIT. This is awesome. Dudes in dresses. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. But anyway, let's carry on.
I've made it my mission to uproot the obvious distractions that made us less capable and less lethal. That said,
sorry, that buzzing in the background, that's coming from the video. It's not my end.
The War Department requires the next step. Underneath the woke garbage is a deeper problem, and a more important problem that we are fixing, and fixing fast. Common sense is back at the White House, so making the necessary changes is actually pretty straightforward. President Trump expects it. And the litmus test for these changes, it's pretty simple. Would I want my eldest son, who is 15 years old, eventually joining the types of formations that we are currently wielding? If in any way the answer to that is no, or even yes, but, then we're doing something wrong. Because my son is no more important than any other American citizen who dons the cloth of our nation. He is no more important than your son. All precious souls made in the image and likeness of God. Every parent deserves to know that their son or their daughter that joins our ranks is entering exactly the kind of unit that the Secretary of War would want his son to join. Think of it as the golden rule test. Jesus said, do unto others that which you would have done unto yourself. It's the ultimate simplifying test of truth. The new War Department golden rule.
Sorry, that buzzing is really annoying, but still listening to what he's saying.
Is this: do unto your unit as you would have done unto your own child's unit. Would you want him serving with fat or unfit or undertrained troops? Or
Nope.
alongside people who can't meet basic standards? Or in a unit where standards were lowered so certain types of troops could make it in? In a unit where leaders were promoted for reasons other than merit, performance, in warfighting? The answer is not just no, it's hell no. This means at the War Department, first and foremost, we must restore a ruthless, dispassionate, and common sense application of standards. I don't want my son serving alongside troops who are out of shape, or in combat unit with females who can't meet the same combat arms physical standards as men, or troops who are not fully proficient on their assigned weapons, platform, or task.
Damn. This is awesome. Like this part of the speech really strikes a nerve with me anyway. I've got 2 children currently serving in the Defence Force and a third one looking to get into the Defence Force as well. And what he's saying, I connect and resonate with strongly. Yeah, I don't want my children, or I don't want my children to be the fat slobs that can't keep up in their units. I don't want my children to be in a unit that have got fat slobs that can't keep up, male or female. I don't care. That's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of, from a physical fitness perspective, to be competent with the other training that they receive and to be able to pick that information up as quickly as they can, to be able to apply it. I want, my children, our children, to be able to be competent and being able to do that, and to be serving and working alongside other people that are. Man, it just sounds like common sense, like how and why things have drifted away from that basic expectation and standard. Just seems crazy, but it's nice for me as a parent now, and as a former military veteran, to hear this guy speaking about what they're doing in the US. Why do I say that? Because I think New Zealand and likely Australia could probably do with a bit of a review of some of this stuff. At least here in NZ anyway, I saw some of that firsthand at one of my children's march out parades with, some, let's just say, didn't seem like the infantry that I recall, or that I was privileged to be a part of. Maybe I'll talk more about that a little bit later on, but I'll leave that there for now. Let's get back into this.
Or under a leader who was the first, but not the best. Standards must be uniform, gender neutral, and high. If not, they're not standards. They're just suggestions. Suggestions that get our sons and daughters killed. When it comes to combat arms units, and there are many different stripes across our joint force, the era of politically correct, overly sensitive, don't hurt anyone's feelings leadership ends right now. At every level, either you can meet the standard, either you can do the job, either you are disciplined, fit, and trained, or you are out. And that's why today, at my direction, and this is the first of 10 Department of War directives that are arriving at your commands as we speak and in your inbox. Today, at my direction, each service will ensure that every requirement for every combat MOS, for every designated combat arms position, returns to the highest male standard only.
Awesome. That is awesome.
Because this job is life or death. Standards must be met. And not just met, at every level we should seek to exceed the standard, to push the envelope, to compete. It's common sense. And core to who we are and what we do, it should be in our DNA.
Man, this just should be standard across, regardless of which military you're in. I hope NZ's listening to this. I hope Australia's listening to it. If they're already doing it, great. But if not, there's more than something. There's a heck of a lot to be taken away from this particular speech. People that might get all upset and want to get the tissues out and have a bit of a sook in and around, this isn't fair, this isn't right, that's not what we should be doing. likely from people that haven't served or haven't deployed on operations and or haven't been involved in conflict. And I'll tell you now, I would much rather have, war fighters and be alongside war fighters in times of conflict, like what they're talking about, or war, as he's been speaking to, rather than the person that thinks we can just talk it all out. It would be great if our leaders could do their job and talk through and come to a resolution to avoid war and all that type of stuff. But evidence has shown and history has shown that that's not what happens. People's feelings get hurt. People don't get what they want. A whole bunch of other things, and then decisions are made, and people are sent to war to go and fight those things, and it's labeled and set up as whatever it is. Weapons of mass destruction as one example. Who knows? Could be any number of things. Hence why I mentioned, and like the Defense Secretary here said, nobody in that room is seeking or wanting war, but they understand the need to prepare for it. And unfortunately, they call it what it is. People vote people into positions of power, and when they're in those positions of power, when there's hidden agendas, potentially, maybe not always, when you control the narrative of what's being communicated out into the world, you can see how, where, and why things happen and move in such a way that conflict and war happens. So, unfortunately, it is what it is. You need people, you need soldiers that are prepared to go and fight and do those things for you, for me, for us, and for themselves and for those that they're serving with.
Today, at my direction, we are also adding a combat field test for combat arms units that must be executable in any environment at any time and with combat equipment. These tests, they'll look familiar. They'll resemble the Army Expert Physical Fitness Assessment or the Marine Corps Combat Fitness Test. I'm also directing that warfighters in combat jobs execute their service fitness test at a gender-neutral, age-normed male standard scored above 70%. It all starts with physical fitness and appearance. If the Secretary of War can do regular, hard PT, so can every member of our joint force.
Here, mate. It's a good point. It's like people wanting to get in shape, and go into a gym. You're not. Well, I would assume you're not going to pay for a fat personal trainer to take you through and show you how to get in shape. Sometimes I think with doctors, maybe to a degree physiotherapists, we probably have a bit less of an option because of their education that they've received. But you look at them, we all do it. I know I do it, and I'm sure you do as well. But we'll look at people and we'll judge them based on their appearance. And if they look out of shape, I'll be honest, for me personally, it doesn't instill a lot of confidence in me to want to listen to what it is that they have to say. Call me woke or wrong or whatever. That's my 2 cents for what it's worth. And I think the same would be, it's the same like if you're seeing a police officer rock up. If I've got a big fat Oompa Loompa doughboy police officer rocks up to my place after I've called the police because something's gone on, and they look like, they can barely fit their uniform, I'm thinking to myself, why have I even bothered calling you? Like, what are you going to do? So it's right or wrong. That's just my headspace. I think anybody wearing a uniform, like a firefighter, last person you want rocking up in the event of a fire, house fire, building fire, commercial fire, bushfire, whatever the case might be, is some fat person who's popping the buttons or the seams on their uniform. They're going to run out of breath quick. I don't care who you are. You're going to run out of breath quick. Adrenaline will get you so far. So I think the same is true for soldiers. Holy heck, it's just on 30 minutes now. I'll let this go for a little bit longer, and then I'll probably pause it because otherwise this may end up taking me 3 hours.
Frankly, It's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are.
I love that. That's awesome. That's just what I was having a bit of a rant about. Anyway.
So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test. And as the chairman said, yes, there is no PT test. But today, at my direction, every member of the Joint Force at every rank is required to take a PT test twice a year, as well as meet height and weight requirements twice a year.
This is awesome. This is awesome to hear. Twice a year, height and weight requirements, normal aged person with the physical fitness test or testing that they're going to be doing, field testing, combat fitness assessments, all that sort of stuff, or whatever the terms are that they use. That it does start with the physical ability of the individuals, and then through that, the fitter, the faster, the stronger somebody is, the better equipped they are to take on information, to be able to apply that and implement it the way it's meant to be. And the more bandwidth that a person has, in my experience anyway, to be able to learn and take on more and adapt and be more agile, flexible, fast in times of high stress. Because if you're not fit, fast and strong, you're going to be dragging the chain, and you're going to be less capable, in my opinion, to be able to take on board the information. Maybe that combat role isn't for you. I'm not saying that there may not be other places for you in the military, but if you are not fit, fast, strong, in those meeting those basics or meeting these standards that they're calling out here, at his direction too. I like that he's taking ownership of that. He's not saying we have decided. He's saying at my direction. So whether it's his call based on what he's been seeing, which it sounds like it is, sick and tired of seeing fat troops lined up, sick and tired of seeing fat admirals and generals lining the halls of the Pentagon. Those are, this is a good fish slap in the face moment and wake up call for anybody that might fit that description or that may have been making certain decisions in line with what he's spoken about so far. So anyway, I'm going to pause this one here, and because that's a little over 30 minutes, and otherwise I'll keep rambling on, and then I'll come back to this one later on. So if you've made it this far, thank you very much for your time and for your support. Man, I'd love to hear what you think about Pete Hegseth's comments, whether they're completely different to mine or against mine, or whether they're the same. Be cool to hear your thoughts. F around and find out. I didn't realize until recently as well that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth served in the military. I think he was a major, and I think he served in Iraq and in Afghanistan and that as well. I don't know how long he served for, but it's good to hear and see somebody who can speak with a level of authenticity through service and through his observations and the position that he holds now, and the fact that he, I don't know how old he is, but he's not fat, he's not overweight, his clothing that he's wearing isn't bursting at the seams, and he's still looking to keep himself in shape. And I think that says a lot just in and of itself, with regards to trying to not necessarily inspire, but with regards to leading people and trying to lead as well as you can. So anyway, as always, the message is the same, regardless of your challenges, difficulties, trials that you may be going through. Just encourage you to keep turning up, keep staying in the fight, put one foot in front of the other and take one day at a time. Know that things can do and will get better. The sun will shine again. No matter how difficult and challenging they are, I promise you things will get better. There is a light at the end of that tunnel. So as always, go always a little further. Remember, who dares wins and who cares wins. And until the next video, there's a big mana wave coming from me to you, filled with my aroha, respect, appreciation and gratitude for you all.